In this last episode of the Briseis Race, we will look for the race as it nears Derby and ends in the Cascade Valley and down to the Briseis Mine Hole. Last time we finished at the end of the valley siphon. Now we follow the race towards Derby and search for it where it changes into a pipeline behind the town. In Derby, at Christopher Street, using a 1907 photograph of the pipeline as a guide to where we will search. It was this pipeline that supplied the Briseis mine with water pressure when digging below the Ringarooma River. The basalt overburden required serious water pressure to undermine the rock so that it could be removed. We walked up Christopher Street looking for the remains of the pipeline which would lead us to the race above the town.
You can see the earth wall on that side there?
You
can see the earth wall just there. Where they've dug it out to lower it here, I guess.
Reckon the pipe come up through here?
Yeah. You can see it more clear up.
There's a hollow down there.
Oh, look at that. Wow, look at that.
Could be a pipe.
Oh, there it is. There it is. You can see that's pipe there.
Yeah. That'd be a 25-inch pipe.
That's still there.
Yeah.
I thought it sat on top.
In the 1960s, Fern Woods and Ben Bishop removed many of these pipes to rebuild the pipeline for the Pioneer Tin Mine. I wonder if that's what Ben Bishop was talking about.
So
this big high stonework.
This must have been it. Now the pipe's at this level up here.
Yeah.
And it eventually comes down to where we just were. It must just come down maybe on some timbers.
Yeah.
Which aren't really.
We found pieces of rusty pipes and a high stonework that didn't seem to have any purpose. And that's definitely a 25-inch pipe.
Does that look the right size?
Yep.
Well, this must have been done for something. It's not really a flat bench on top.
No.
It's not really level or neat and tidy.
It was a hard slog up the steep slopes through a tangle of bushes and sags.
I think it's meant to be here, but it's been removed. I don't think it's in there. So again, I think half of the soil's been removed.
Yep.
But they've taken the extra pipe.
The trench that once housed the pipes was still visible and sometimes still contained rusty pieces of pipe.
They've taken that pipe from this. Right there, Jeff.
Yep.
And it continues on here. So they left it sit behind. It must have been two beyond salvaging. We are back in it.
Further up the hill, we came out onto the new mountain bike trails, returned to Sender and King's Wall.
I'm impressed by these historical artefacts. They just push them out of the way and put the track over the top of it.
Yep.
In there. So on the way back, I'll see if I can find that. Here's another interesting bit.
Yep.
It sat on that trestling. The trestling clearly puts it in position, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It must have been on that trestling.
Somewhere along here, the Briseis Race split into two. One of them went to the early Briseis working still up the Cascade.
Right.
And then as they worked down the Cascade and into the what we know as the mine hole now,
Yeah.
they obviously diverted the pipe and ran down the hill to get work there.
Yeah. The doors come out of there, so you can use that for something.
Oh, and here's the pipe again.
So there's the pipe,
Yep.
and it's probably in position.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
probably where it was always originally
So
was.
this is the pipe that goes to the Cascade Valley.
I guess so.
We now follow the pipeline that went to the Cascade Valley, where the Briseis water race originally ended.
It's just by itself.
This part of the race carried water to the company's tin mining leases in the Cascade River Valley. Right.
And there's nothing else going away from us.
There's
Oh, here's a reduction here, Jeff.
pipes down there.
That's a reduction there.
Right.
Whatever that means.
I can see from here.
Yeah. And it's an internal. Well, it looks like it's just slipped inside, to be quite honest. There's no collar or nothing.
No.
I don't know what that means. But it's definitely poked inside of that one.
It was in April 1902 that the race was officially opened, just 15 months after construction started. Mrs. Donald Fraser turned on the water and sacrificed a bottle of champagne. The water rushed from the nozzle with a roar and scattered rainbows in brilliant sunshine. The scene was gay with flags and floral decorations. The Derby band played See the Conquering Hero, while the Briseis Royal Artillery fired a salute and photographers brought cameras into action. Donald Fraser, the surveyor for the race, must have been proud to have seen his work come to fruition, allowing the mine to operate all year round. The Briseis Tin Mining Company operated leases up the Cascade Valley, with water originally from that river. One of the problems here was the deep overburden that had to be removed in order to get to the tin-bearing gravels. Tunnels and haulage trucks were used to remove this overburden. Until this surface material was removed, there was no access to the tin-bearing sediments that lay in the bed of the old Cascade River. These photographs of the early 1900s show how much water and labour was needed to remove the overburden. In some cases, whole hills were removed. After reaching the tin-bearing gravel, sluices and tail races were constructed to extract and sort the tin. Much of the tin was covered by a layer of tough basalt rocks that had to be broken up and moved. As mining extended deeper and up the valley, larger sluices and tail races were needed, including pumping stations. Note the huge piles of overburden on either side of this photograph. Another major problem was getting rid of the tailings from the mining operations. Huge quantities of sediment had to be disposed of. This was not allowed to encroach on other mining leases, so tunnels were dug through hillsides to allow tailings to be dumped into the Ringarooma River.
It splits here, Jeff, and there's both sides are blocked. But that blockage on the right looks like mud.
At one stage, the Ringarooma River was to be declared a sludge channel. Over the many years of mining, the Ringarooma River was silted up, even down as far as Boobialla, where the river enters the sea.
Right,
We're on the race.
So that's some sort of an elbow there.
Yeah. So somewhere along here, we've got to come to where the race changes to a pipe, which went down into the Briseis mine. Somewhere along here.
Well, let's hope we can recognise that.
These 1902 photographs show the meticulous work involved in constructing a race through rocky and difficult terrain.
All this stone walling just here, it's all nearly vertical.
So here we've got, yep,
This is nearly vertical. You don't see it sort of vertical like that.
bit of hard work in there.
Yeah, and it's still in position, you know, it still hasn't deteriorated.
So we're actually near the end of the race part of the race.
But you,
So that's where the race goes into the pipe, basically.
well, somewhere
Yeah,
through
somewhere
here,
here.
yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that it's in the ground
Yeah,
means it's probably in position,
yep.
but something's been disturbed here. You can see that all sorts of
Yep.
soil been moved about.
One of them went to the early Briseis working still up the Cascade,
Right,
and then as they worked down the Cascade and into the what we know as the mine hole now,
yeah,
they obviously diverted the pipe and ran down the hill to get work there.
yeah, that could well be.
So we're now walking down where the pipeline used to go. Taken in 1907, this photograph shows the pipeline crossing the Ringarooma River to the new workings on the north side, laying the pipes down the hill between the Imperial Hotel and Post Office. Note the road to Marina climbing the hill on the other side. Towards the mine hole.
Goes through there.
So that's where it went down through there.
There might be a bit of it still in amongst all that rubbish.
Yep. These pipelines to the workings were moved as the workings progressed along the tin deposits under the riverbed. When the new Briseis Mining Company was formed in 1899, it amalgamated many of the early leases, including the Crusher Brothers and Ringarooma mines. This allowed a large-scale, more economic mining of the Reach Deep tin lead. Emphasis moved from the Cascade Valley leases to those on the north side of the river. In 2021, most of the workings in the Cascade Valley are hidden beneath a vigorous growth of vegetation. It is through here that some of the new mountain bike tracks snake. This rare 1926 movie shows footage of the Briseis mine in operation. If you look closely, you will see men working horse teams deep in the mine. This early photo shows the original course of the Ringarooma River before any large-scale workings on the north bank. I have overlaid images from approximately the same location in 2021. The original recreation ground was relocated by the mining company to give access to deep tin leads under the river. In fact, the river was moved at least 3 times in the search for deep tin deposits. Before the river was diverted, the main road crossed the Ringarooma River near the school. looking up the Cascade Valley from near the present-day Blue Derby Children's Bike Track. This next series of photographs show the various river diversions, cofferdams and riverless bridges in the early 1920s. We now look southeast towards where the Ringarooma and Cascade rivers meet. This huge 45 metre deep mine hole gave access to the tin leads beneath the old riverbed. Although the mine used electric pumps and explosives, much of the work had to be done by hand and horse and cart. Breaking up the basalt overburden was slow work, costly and never-ending. Hydraulic sluicing from high-pressure nozzles was used first to break up the ground and undermine the basalt overburden. The size of these sluice boxes gives some idea of the magnitude of the operation. Hydraulic elevators were used to lift the basalt rocks to be dumped in huge stacks that can still be seen today. The ever-increasing need to remove this overburden would lead to deaths from rockfalls and eventually the closure of the mine. This is looking towards the current bridge over the Ringarooma River. On the right of this photograph are the huge basalt overburden dumps in the same location today. The bridge is different, but the trout rock is still there. Taken in 1928, just before the flood, looking towards where the floodwaters came down the Cascade Valley. We now turn our attention to Derby past and present. Fortunately, many of Derby's heritage buildings are still intact. Unfortunately, in 1950, a fire broke out in the shop next to the Imperial Hotel. With no fire brigade, the flames quickly spread, and despite the buckets and hoses of volunteers, the hotel was totally destroyed. Few belongings were saved, but all occupants escaped safely. Disaster struck Derby in April 1929. Up to 7 inches of rain fell on Derby on the 3rd of April, and then on the 4th of April a further 12 inches. James Jaffray, caretaker of the Cascade Dam, noted an enormous flow of water over the top of the whole dam wall. Foam and spray were going hundreds of feet into the air. The flood stripped away vegetation and everything else as it raced down the valley. Such was the force of the water, it carved a new path through a hill, carrying away mine offices and stables before reaching the Ringarooma River, flooding the mine. Remarkably, all the men working in the 45-metre deep mine hole managed to escape as the hole filled with water and debris. It's hard to imagine how the miners working down in this hole escaped drowning. The Inverarity's house was lifted from its foundations and carried 50 yards downstream. Fortunately, Mrs. Inverarity escaped. The main road near the Dorset Hotel was blocked by logs, trees and debris. 14 people lost their lives in this tragic disaster. The Briseis mine was reopened after the 1929 flood. The task of reopening the mine was long and difficult. While this was undertaken, men were employed on tribute by the company. This panorama shows the mine face in Derby in the 1950s. Of course, with the closure of the mine, the inevitable shutdown of the businesses in Derby occurred. The school that once had over 200 students was eventually closed in the 1970s. Today, Derby has been given a new lease of life, thanks to the Dorset Council's initiative to construct an extensive network of mountain bike trails.
So this will be an 80-odd K experience in northeast Tasmania, which will rival anything else in Australia.
Oh well. Recent additions have catered for family biking groups with small children, and the new suspension bridge across the river gives access to the Briseis Mine Hole and allowed development of this previously isolated area. One of the tunnels has been opened up with lighting for bikes and walkers. Parts of Heritage Derby have been preserved, and the future prosperity of Derby and surrounding districts assured. As we fly over the Briseis Mine Hole or Derby Lake in 2021, we can wonder what new activities might make use of this beautiful man-made feature that once employed over 120 people extracting nature's precious mineral. Maybe the old Derby River Derby can be re-engineered as an aquatic sports day on our new lake.